We ask you for story ideas all the time. We already did earlier in the show. A lot of them have to do with Idaho history, which is great. And what better way to learn about the 208, right? Several months ago, we got this text sent in from Richard in Meridian. Research story, Midget Village off Walnut and Warm Springs on the Boise City Canal. Okay, well, first and foremost, midget is derogatory, so we're going to go with Dwarf Village. I'm sure that was what you intended. Second, it's been a few months because you can imagine the digging we had to do to figure out what that message meant. But we did figure it out. And it wasn't Dwarf Village, and it wasn't off Walnut and Warm Springs, but it was on the Boise City Canal, and it was on Main Street, and it was known as Spanish Village. We found out more about it from a Centennial High School history teacher who spent a long time learning about it, or as he put it, following the breadcrumbs, while he was a student at Boise State University. Today's Get to Know Idaho starts with a memorial marker, one that's kind of hidden, a little like the story it tells. If you don't know where to look, just driving east down Main Street, you'd likely miss this monument that marks one of Boise's lesser-known biographies. 115 Main Street was once the center of an entire community, Boise's Spanish Village.
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, and it hasn't existed since 1971.
And its beginnings go back a century earlier, when a man named Antonio de Ocampo bought part of Boise's Block 29 in 1873.
And from 73 on, it was kind of the center of the Spanish-speaking population there.
Historian Max Delgado says Ocampo was the local herder, tending to the townsfolk's livestock. When he died in 1878, he left his land and 3 horses to his friend, Jesus Urquedes.
And it became the site. It was mostly a beginning of a logistical base for a meal packing business that he had started.
Max says Urquedes came to Boise by way of Sonora, Mexico, through California during the gold rush, then over the Sierra Nevada mountains when that same metal was found in Idaho territory in the 1860s, guiding his pack mules the entire time.
There wasn't a mining camp of any size throughout Idaho or even in the interior West that he hadn't been to or known about.
And there weren't exactly roads to get to them.
The most reliable way of getting anything into these camps was with the mules.
Supplying Boise Basin businesses, Urquedes built himself quite a business and then turned to building a home base for packers. He started with a one-room cabin for his wife, then bought the back lot that abutted the Boise Canal. He added a couple of cabins that became a few more, and a few more in 1912, so that by 1956, there were more than 20 tenement buildings on Urquedes' homestead. He called it his little world. Everyone else called it Spanish Village.
That was the core, that was the nucleus of the Spanish-speaking people there.
Only men were allowed to live there, and they weren't allowed to drink or gamble. Urquedes passed away in 1928 at the age of 95, and at that time was charging $3 a month for a cabin, a price that stayed that way until 1965, when it was raised to $10 by Urquedes' daughter Lola, who died a month later. The village hung on a few more years until a fire in 1971 took it out. Max says Urquedes' story made him want to memorialize the man with this Main Street monument in 2013. What do you want people to know who stop by and see that?
Idaho, early Idaho attracted a lot of people from all over. This was, I guess one way to put it is an ethnic neighborhood. This is where the Spanish-speaking, people, lived. He was the link. He was that link, that pioneer link. And he was there every step of the way.
And it wasn't just Urquedes' property that was considered the core of the Spanish-speaking people. Max said next door at 111 Main Street lived the Fontes family. Manuel Fontes was also from Sonora, Mexico, and he still has family living in the Treasure Valley. Max says it's worth noting how much of a multinational place early Idaho was. From the Chinese to the Basque to the Mexican to the Finnish to Urquedes' daughter Lola, who married a Jewish man from Poland. Max, who himself is a second-generation American but a seventh-generation Westerner, says his interest in Urquedes started with a paper he was supposed to write while at Boise State on Hispanics in Idaho back in 2001. His research ended up becoming a book in 2006 and a thesis in 2010. And of course, that almost hidden monument in 2013.